for several reasons, exclusively in specific case, and then naturally we have to perform all stages that are needed in order to get success in GDR, like the perforation of the bone in order to promote the vascularization of the site and to promote the passage of the self-indifferentiated cell cells from the cancellous bone to the site to be regenerated. Then we have to shape the membrane, the titanium reinforced membrane, and fix the membrane on the lingual side. The correct timing of the using of this barrier is with the fixing of the barrier on the lingual and on the palatal side for the same, for the first zone, in order to protect the biomaterial during the grafting around the implants from the contamination of the saliva or the touching from the tongue. It is preferable to wash the surface of the membrane after the fixation. Then the washing of the biomaterial is not possible to wash the biomaterial, to clean the biomaterial in case of contamination. This is the reason why at the beginning we fix the membrane on the lingual side, in order that when you move the membrane lingually, we have the protection of the site to be regenerated from the contact with the tongue or for the contamination of the saliva. Then, after the preparation of the site, we graft the biomaterial. The biomaterial is a composite mix between autogenous bone that normally in the lower jaw is in 60-70% autogenous bone, harvested with the scraper in the same zone. And then 30-40% of similar material. Bovine, porcine, the behavior of this biomaterial is similar. We don't have particular differences between these materials. It's important the presence of autogenous bone. Why? Not because the autogenous bone has osteoinductive activity. No. The autogenous bone is not able to perform an osteoinductive activity because in few minutes the autogenous bone diet are chicks without vascularization. They cannot perform the osteogenetic activity. But the autogenous bone is recognized from the osteoclast cells as a proper bone died, and it promotes the osteoclast cells action. And we know that the osteogenetic processes start after the osteoclast sex activation. Without the osteoclast cells activation, we don't have osteogenetic processes. And so the presence of autogenous bone is useful for that. Because the activation of the osteoclast cells, if we should use only xenograft material, is more difficult. And the regeneration of the bone delayed. Instead, the presence of the autogenous bone died, no osteoinduction, but only osteoconduction, promote the activity of the osteoclast cells. Then, after the grafting of the myotibial, we close the membrane on the top of the biomaterial, and we fix the membrane also on the buccal side. You can see an interesting aspect or detail of the GBR, the dimension of the width of the bone regeneration, 12 millimeters. We pre-shaped the membrane with a data probe in order to define with precision this type of dimension. We wanted to have 12 millimeters on the molar area and 8 millimeters in the premolar area. You cannot stay concentrated only on the verticality. If you want to maintain the regenerated bone, you have to focus your attention also on the horizontality. Why? We said that the bone regeneration depends on two processes.
Quá trình tái sinh xương tùy thuộc vào hai
The
quá trình
dorsal
khác nhau.
activity and the periosteal activity. But when we use the non-absorbable titanium reinforced membrane, the periosteum is isolated. It cannot contribute to the regeneration of the bone. And what does means? You could say, but I managed to get the bone regeneration in the meantime again. But it changes the quality of bone. Without the presence of the periosteum, we don't have the external corticalization of the bone. And the cortical layer of the regenerated bone is the natural protection of the bone. So, when we remove the membrane after 6, 7, 8 months, the time of bone regeneration, we can observe radiologically, histologically, histomorphometrically, and clinically, we can observe that the quality of bone is poor, very poor. A modest quality of the native bone. The bone is not such hard, sometimes it's soft, and we don't have corticalization. Histologically, histomorphometrically, it is a disaster. You work 8, 9, 10 months through surgery with a lot of risk. You harvest the bone in order to evaluate the quality, and histological, histomorphometrical is a shit. But This is the time in order to place the periosteum against the bone. Fortunately, it is the right time for the contribution of the periosteum activity. The periosteum activity has to be placed over the top of the bone with the perfect closure of the flaps in order to protect the delicate bone. But it is true that now we can gain the improving of the quality of the bone through the periosteum contact. It is true. With the increasing of the mineralization, with the increasing of the corticalization. But at the meantime, we have to pay a cost. We have to pay a cost. The periosteum is very aggressive. It's very aggressive. And while he tries to join it to the regenerated bone, on one hand, it contributes with the increasing of mineralization, the increasing of the corticalization, but on the other hand, it returns and contraction of the delicate bone. And we lose in a horizontal way on 1.5/2 millimeters on each side. It means that after the maturation of the bone through the periosteum contact, we could lose between 3 and 4 millimeters of horizontal width. A big quantity. This is the reason why when perform the bone regeneration, we have to calculate the dimension of the new width in order to compensate the remodeling of the bone after the removal of the membrane. And the 12 millimeters is the ideal width in order to protect the bone, the implants, from 1.52 millimeters on each side of the implants if we should place an implant with 5 millimeters of diameter. 5 millimeters of diameter plus 2 millimeters on each side are 9 millimeters, less 3 millimeters that we could lose are 12 millimeters. It is a rationale for which I perform the GBR always with this dimension, 12 millimeters in molar area and 8 millimeters in premolar area. Then I place in this specific case some fibrous membrane and I close perfectly the flaps. We can perform this surgical procedure even if the defect is severe because we had the residual bone peak. Without the bone peak, the surgical predictability is limited. Pay attention. There is a difference between the possibility to perform bone regeneration or the risk to have complication. The surgical predictability is in relationship with the complication. If I had a high surgical predictability, probably I couldn't have application. But it means that it isn't needed to have the bone peak in order to regenerate the bone. This is an old concept. We could regenerate the bone even if we shouldn't have the residual bone peak. But, and this is the different point of view, but the surgical predictability would be very low, because the risk of complication and infection would be very high. So we can regenerate a bone even if we don't have the big bone. Of course, if we have the big bone, we have a larger portion of the bone from which we can have vascular support, cell stance, everybody that is needed for the bone regeneration. But if we shouldn't have a big bone, we can have bone regeneration again. But the risk of complication is very high. Why? Because when we elevate our flap, we destroy the periodontal attachment around the last tooth. We destroy. But that periodontal attachment could be present with or without bone peak. Without bone peak, we had only connective tissue attachment. With the bone peak, we had connective tissue attachment and periosteum attachment. When we destroy the periodontal attachment with or without bone, if we want to have success in GBR, we have to restore again the periodontal attachment. Because differently, through the sulcus of the last tooth, the bacteria can penetrate inside and determine the infection of the GBR. Now, I describe the rationale for the bone peak, residual bone peak. So, if we analyze the timing of the restoring of the different layers of the periodontal attachment, we place at the first place the periosteum. The periosteum is very fast, immediately. The periosteum is the first part of the periodontal attachment that is restored when we place the flaps against the bone. Then the second is the connective tissue. Need 1 week, long time, against the root. And then the long epithelial attachment, 2 weeks. It means that if we have the bone peak, we can place the periosteum again the bone, and the restoring of the periodontal attachment is very fast. But if we don't have the bone peak, we can obtain the periodontal attachment through the connective tissue attachment. But we know that in order to restore the connective tissue attachment, we need at least 1 week. And during this long time, the risk of the infection are very high. This is the importance between a strategic concept that is relating the biological seal and mechanical seal. I changed my approach to the GBR and my results because before this concept I had 6.8% of failure in GBR in consequence of the infection. 6.8 with the perfect closure of the flaps, not with the opening of the flaps, not with the early exposure of the flaps. Perfect closure of the flaps after 2 weeks infection. But then I understood that I had to work on this concept, obtain the biological seal, not mechanical seal. And sometimes we get mechanical seal when we can note that the flaps are perfectly closed against the neck of the tooth, but without the correct spatiality, condition for which we cannot restore the periodontal attachment. I try to understand you. Try to imagine that the head of the implants that you place at the time of the GBR is placed 1 millimeter more coronally than the residual bone peak. Or another solution, that the implants has been placed correctly, but when I took the biomaterial in excess was over the top of the heads of the implants, and the level of the membrane is higher than the bone peak. Okay? In this way, when I place the flaps over the top of the regenerated area, can the periosteum get in contact with the residual bone peak? No. Because the bone peak is here, the level of the membrane is here, the flap is here, and the periosteum cannot get in contact with the bone peak. It means that we cannot have periosteal attachment. But your flap were closed perfectly around the last tooth. Mechanical seal. And then, can the connective tissue restore its attachment against the cementum of the root? No, because the connective tissue is against the enamel. The flap has been moved to corner. Periosteum not in contact with the bone, no periosteal attachment. Connective tissue not in contact with the cementum, but with the enamel. No connective tissue attachment. So this is a mechanical seal. It means that it's perfectly close against the neck of the tooth. Did you understand? Close, but not biologically sealed. Because they didn't respect the spatiality of the flap. It's normal. If we wanted to close this kind of regeneration, we have to passivate perfectly the flaps. We could speak for a long time of all guidelines that are important in order to reduce the risk of complication. all guidelines. But then at the end, if you don't pass the flaps, you cannot close for the first intention then. And look at this is a thing of 3 centimeters of passivation. 3 centimeters. The correct search application of the surgical procedure that I published in 2011 for the lingual flap and 2015 on the buccal flap. 4 centimeters for the buccal flap without damaging the vessels, no bleeding, never. It is the performance of the using of the blade with a very selected way. We perform a dissecate of the flap when we perform the buccal passivation flap. The detachment of the submucosa from the muscles in order to separate the unelastic portion of the flap from the elastic portion of the flap, in order to move the flap in a significant way. 7 centimeters, not millimeters, centimeters of coronal displacement of the flap, in order to cover, to protect, to close this GBR of 12 millimeters of verticality. And naturally, this is the new profile. We restore completely the missing body. And it's very interesting to evaluate the behavior of the bone in relationship with the removal of the membrane and the placing of the periosteum against the bone. This is the case before the surgery, and is 11 months later. You can see that the bone is black-gray, is transparent. It has a mineralization. But in any case, after this time, I observed that the quality of bone doesn't change. It means that even if you maintain the barrier for a longer time, you don't have an improvement of the quality of bone. Why? Because if you want to improve the quality of bone, we have to place the periosteum in contact with the bone. And so, at that time, I removed the membrane. I elevated a foot thickness at, and this is the bone. You can see that the bone is well compacted, but in the middle, in the center, where there was a maximum defect, the quality of bone is different from the lateral side, where there was a better vascularization. The inner part has a poor vascularization. But placing the periosteum against this non-matured bone, we can change completely the quality of bone. And so I closed again the flaps in a way that we cannot have any risk of opening of the flaps. These sutures is similar to the GBR suture. It isn't a conventional interrupted suture, because in case that we should have the opening of the flaps over the top of this not naturally regenerated bone, the risk of the absorption would be very high, because the bone is such delicate that in case of the opening of the flap, part of the bone could be absorbed. And so, if you don't want to have this kind of problem, you have to close perfectly the flaps at the time of membrane removal. Horizontal matrix sutures and interrupted sutures. And look at the different quality of bone after the periosteum contact. In 3 months, the same cut shows as the quality of bone before the removal of the membrane was poor, and in 3 months we can see the external corticalization of the bone. 3.5. Look at how the bone increases its density. How externally to the regenerated bone we can see a thin layer of cortical bone. Before we had it. 3.6. It's wonderful. This is the biology. Are not the skills of Marco Rocca. Biology. But we have to know the biology if you want to educate the bone. In the past, at the time of membrane removal, in the past, the surgeon activated immediately the implants, placing the bone in contact with the saliva. The aggressivity of the bacteria of the mouth against the non-matured bone deterred absorption. They had always absorption. But if we know that the bone is regenerated through the endosteal and periosteal activity, will be important or not the periosteum? Yes, it is very important. But we have to give the correct time to the bone in order to be conditioned from the periosteum contact. And this one is calculated in 3 months. It means that in order to get a good maturation of the bone after the membrane removal, with the closing of the flaps and placing the periosteum against the bone, we need on average 3 months before to get the adhesion of the periosteum to the bone and the mineralization of the bone with corticalization of the external part. Then, when we have to activate the implants, we have to manage always the soft tissues, always, because you can see that we lost completely the keratinized tissue band, we lost the depth of the fornix, and so if we don't perform a repositioning the alveolar mucosa with the grafting of the free gingival graft, we cannot have an adequate quality of tissue that are needed for the prognosis of our GBR, implant GBR. We cannot concentrate ourselves in the bone regeneration. Yes, bone regeneration is can have a longer prognosis if we had to this first procedure and second surgical procedure that involves the soft tissue management. And then, naturally, we had to prepare the template, we defined the ideal dimension and shape of the graft that we have to harvest in the palatal area. And then we place the graft in this specific case in lingual, occlusal, and buccal side in order to restore perfectly in three-dimensional way the missing keratinized tissue bed. We have to stabilize perfectly the graft in the correct position and in the perfect adhesion against the vascular bed in order to get a very fast and quick revascularization of the graft. And in this way you can see that we restore the depth of the fornix. And the compressive and crossing sutures are anchored on the periosteum, apical portion of the periosteum that we left on the line, on the surface of the regenerated bone. 1 week. Bone regeneration, but also soft tissue management. We restore a big quantity of keratinized tissue band around the implants. We restore the depth of the fornix. And this is the maturation. A good seal, biological seal around the implants. That it is for the prognosis of our implants. And the temporary crown or definitive crown, I don't remember. And from here, we restore three-dimensionally the missing bone volume, but also created a condition for the good prognosis of our implants. So this is the one-stage approach. The combination of the vertical and horizontal bone regeneration and the immediate placing of the implants. Why one-stage approach? I can tell you that we have several reasons for why the one-stage approach is good and other for which is better the two stages approach. There isn't only one ideal option. I have to be honest, after a long time of application of this procedure, now I prefer two stages approach for several reasons that I will describe. But when I have to perform a very little bone regeneration, horizontal bone regeneration, 2, 3, 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters, I use still the one-stage approach. The case that I have just presented today never and then never will be treated by me with a one-stage approach. Never. Because the application of the one-stage approach in those complex cases was performed in a period in which I was crazy. I wanted to demonstrate to the world that I was able to generate 10, 12, 13 millimeters with only 1 millimeters of implants placed. Challenging cases. I I fight it against me. Now I have a different concept. I fight for the patient. Before, I don't want to have complications. Everything is organized for them, not for me. I changed. In the past, I was crazy. Now I changed my philosophy. And so I define very well which are the cases in which you can push because there are the conditions, or that is better to stay. I place the box over the top of the implants, and you can stabilize the membrane before screwing the screws on the lingual side with your finger. You place your finger on top of the membrane. Below the membrane there are the heads of the implants. And you manage to define the position of the membrane, and when you found the correct position of the membrane, you stop the membrane with your finger. And while you are pushing your finger against the membrane and against the heads of the implant, you can fix the membrane on the lingual side, maintaining the position, the correct position of the membrane. When you don't have implants, you place the box, but if you place the finger over the top of the membrane, even if you have the titanium reinforcement, even if you place the biomaterial, but pushing the finger, the membrane can change the shape. The titanium shape can modify. It's very difficult to maintain the stability of the membrane without any risk of modifying the shape of the titanium. Then, the correct positioning of the implants, if you place contextually to the HBR the implants, but not at chaos, not run with a surgical guide, even if you are fixing the implant in 2, 3 millimeters, 4 millimeters, 5 millimeters, but in any case, with a surgical guide, you can define with the implants the ideal spatiality of the bone volume that you want to regenerate. If, naturally, the project of the implants has been done with the prosthesis, the virtual prosthesis. It means that I planned the prosthesis in antagonist with the upper jaw. I place the virtual implants in relationship with the prosthesis, and then with the surgical guide, I place the implants in the ideal and correct position. The quality of bone is not very good because the vascularization is poor, but during this stage, I remove the implants in the same place where I had placed another implant, a larger implant. This was 3 millimeters wide, very thin, and instead I placed an implant of 5 millimeters. And so I remove with the 3 fine implant, and this is the bone attached clinically to the surface of the implants. And I analyze the relationship between them. And this is a very true osseointegration. Very true osseointegration. It isn't true that we have a fiber integration. The regeneration of the bone contextually to the placing of the implants, around the implants that were exposed, determine a perfect osseointegration. Instead, this is the classic two stages approach. And two stages approach is a modality, a surgical procedure